Welcome to the Grateful Human podcast. I'm with John Glon, a very grateful human. He's a growth coach for leadership teams using the Bloom Growth Operating System. Something that made him smile recently was getting some good news at the doctor with his son. But John, thanks for chopping it up, man.
Absolutely, Nick. Thanks for having me. Long overdue.
Awesome. Yeah. So a growth coach is a very cool title for somebody who doesn't know what that is. What do you do?
It also doesn't mean a lot to people. So what that means for me and for my community is I'm not a consultant, right? So I don't tell people what to do. But what I do is I help leadership teams discover themselves the best of themselves for themselves than for the company. And so I help coach leadership teams into building a great company that grows sustainably and
Awesome.
takes on many different things that in between all those nooks and crannies. But that's in a nutshell.
Love it. Have you had this path in you for a long time, or was there a point where you took a turn and said, "I'm a growth coach. That's me."
What's crazy is my upbringing. I grew up in rural Indiana, and you know didn't realize it much until later in life how much of a helping mentality that I grew up with. And I mean, like my father, who my parents were divorced when I was very young, and my dad ran a tow truck business in a junkyard with a friend, and so he was 24/7 driving a wrecker, and I would always find and hear of him helping people out of ditch, not charging them, always hauling the police cars or whatever, not charging, and all those things. And just from a humility standpoint, I had not met someone at that level. Didn't recognize it as a kid, right? You just knew your dad always just worked hard, and I didn't recognize it till much later in life. That example, I would always hold the door open. I would always do things that were just, I don't know, helping. Whenever it was volunteer, I would always be the first to raise my hand, and I just thought that's how you're supposed to be, right?
Hmm.
And as I saw my second sister, I have three sisters. My second sister, seeing her later in life, and really seeing how she has five kids, and seeing how she's been a servant her whole life, and even more so in her community with her kids, in her church, just selfless, always giving back, always doing something. And it wasn't something I recognized other than seeing it in her, that later in life we just recognized how, I don't know, we're predispositioned to do that. And and I think in a humble way, not that like, oh yeah, we're always here to, you know, I'm always here to help. It's just that just it's one of those things that some people, when they see someone in need, they run towards them, and some people just brush it off and move away. And that's just something that I've had. Now, that being said, I've served most of my life for me. So I wanted to get out of the town that I grew up in. I wanted to go have more. We grew up in a trailer park, and right next to a big lake with big houses that everyone from Chicago and Indianapolis would, multi-million-dollar homes. And I got to be the local kid at the big lake. So I got to see all those wonderful things. And so that I set my life to go do that. Let me go get more, go get
Hmm.
things. And and then really fast forward to me building my business, and then I had an EOS implementer, Mike Kotsis. So I got to witness doing what I do today. I got to witness that in my business, and how much he helped me, and how much I got to see the freedom that he had in his life because he was so giving of and helpful for others. Um, that I was like, I want to do that. I couldn't really nail it down. But then in 2019, 2020, 2021, I was really on a search to figure out what the heck I want to do in life.
Like
I wasn't,
completely, just what you wanted to do at
oh,
large.
completely. Yes.
Wow.
I was running a business that was failing. COVID certainly fast forwarded that. And I, I was actually just running away from that business. And I was doing so many other things to try to go figure out what the heck I want. Right. I was, at home, not being the best dad, not being the best husband, really struggling with that part of life. And then now I'm failing with the one part that I thought my whole life was I was successful professionally. I really felt myself failing. And so I was really in a spiral and just constantly trying to figure out what the heck I want. And I went on I told the story so many times, but I went on a journey to that's called Go to the Mountain with who became my personal coach. His name's Bob Schenefeld, Coach Bob. Forever grateful for it. I went on a journey with him. It's called Go to the Mountain, and again, it's a spiritual retreat. And that was the one of the first steps of me finding and figuring out. I was looking at everywhere else for a sign of what I wanted to go do, and leaving that trip or during that trip, it was all pointed back to me. And the instruction manual I was trying to find was really inside myself, and that really started the me realizing and stepping into that childlike helpful wonder that I mean I've had it, I've still done it as an adult, but then just realizing it is innate, it is me, and I just needed to uncover it, that I do want to help people. And I was searching for a way, how do I help people? And I can be a volunteer, at Our Lady of Victory, which again, you're an alum, right? I served as the president of Dad's Club for 7 years. I've done a lot of things to help, and I was struggling to figure out how do I do that with supporting my family with all the things that you surround yourself with when you start to have money or start to do things and start to please other people, the house, the car, all the things that I had selectively chosen to be and become. Now I have all these things around me. Okay, well, how do I keep them? I still like them. I do like the house I live in. I do like to drive cars. Nothing crazy, but I've got 4 kids. I've got to keep them. The schools that they go to, I wouldn't trade them for the world. They're not free. Um, that's a choice that we've made. Okay, how do I continue to do that? Still help, still give. That was a part of me. It was really a struggle to try to figure out. Like my wife wasn't on board with starting over. Like, hey, let's go start a church somewhere with no money. Like that wasn't the version of life that we were going to lead, right?
Hmm.
Or let's go start a nonprofit. That wasn't a piece that we weren't ready to go do that. And this, I did some executive coaching. I did a lot of things like trying to figure out and hone in where do I really, really, I love seeing people come out on the other end, not knowing what they came in for, right? Not many people sit and dream, and not many people take action on those dreams. Or most people, I was doing it in my own business. I was trying to get people to leave my business because I was trying to get them to find out what their passions are and their dreams. And like, if it's not here, that's okay. I want you to go. Like most people don't feel like they're an entrepreneur. They can because they've got to do the things that they got to get a
Hmm.
paycheck and it's risk. And I realized through that as I was coaching my own people through this is like, I want to help people realize something that they didn't think they could do. And long winded story, but that's where I landed on today. I came across Bloom Growth because, again, the implementing thing for EOS is what I wanted to do. The model wasn't working for me. But I came across Bloom Growth and the humans that they are as a company. I was one of the things that I'm a working genius facilitator as well, and I was facilitating their leadership team and ownership team through Working Genius, and I facilitated through their whole company. And after that facilitation, they said, "Wow, we're launching this new operating system. We think you'd be great at it." I'm like, wow, this is like the call I've been waiting for. So here we are. Yes, I do get paid. So back to the whole point, it is for profit. I do, but I get to help teams grow. I get to help. Yes, people make more money. That's not the point. I get to make an impact with the humans that are working inside the business. And again, most of my meetings I measure in form of tears because we're breaking down barriers of them as human beings, like the impact they have at home because they show up differently. They realize how many things that how they're showing up um, is affecting others around them, and they don't realize it. And so, uh, what I get to do, which is more than most any other operating system, really, is we do work on the human, and we do work on transformation. And so it's so different. Yeah, we do the nuts and bolts. We do P&L. We do growth plans. We do meetings. We do all the cadence, all the things that businesses need. But we really go far beyond that, and that's where this really scratches my itch, because I'm going through the journey of myself. Right, I don't
Hmm.
I don't have it all figured out, and so I get to really sit in and learn each and every time I'm in a session as well, because I realize of how I'm showing up.
I'm sure every day is has its own nuances and is different, but give me a day in the life of John as a growth coach.
Hmm. Doing the work is what's fun, right? So I think what's different for me now, other than having to jump back in, I spent most of my entrepreneurial life trying to figure out how to hire people to do the work, and I go do the highest and best use for me. Well, coming back for me now, I've got to go back and do business development myself. I've got to do the work, which is a little different. But the actual session of me in a session with a group is an 8 to 9 hour day, and this is where the juice is worth the squeeze for me. This is what I love. It's showing up. I don't have to prepare. Now, there are some preparation things I do, but like I know for me and who I am now as a human, I show up best when I can just show up and be myself and let whatever, again, I have experience. I have, there's agendas and things that we follow during the day. But we're checking in with each and every human. And that's my favorite part, because most people don't talk about personal in the business. They don't talk about or they're not really being honest with what the real issues might be in the business, or they bring it up in such a way that is disarming to everyone, right? Because if again, there's criticism, and then there's like, again, then you're beating someone down. Bringing the best out of how do we say this in a constructive way to do better for the business. Um, so that's how we start today. And then we're looking back really quickly. Hey, how did we do in the last quarter? What do we learn from it? What do we still need to tackle? And then we spend, a good chunk of the time on relationships. And so this isn't business related, right? We stop for a couple hours, and we're doing some version of growing relationships. And so that's a version of interacting with each other. That's a version of looking and figuring out things that trigger us, so that we can be aware of them. Um, there are some, working on our own. What are your own passions? What are your own? How can we connect those to the business? And if they're not, that's okay. But what is there something you can do that really connects you to your passion? So there's a lot more wrapped in there. We have a 2.5 year curriculum around relationship building. That is a part of it. So doing that again is where I say I measure it in tears, is because we are in a very confidential, cozy setting, and it's curated in such a fashion that people have to be open and honest and vulnerable. And so that's my favorite part, because it's breaking down some walls of someone that may or may not have had that thick candy shell, or it's just real getting to the real things, right? We're getting to the real reasons that are holding us back, why we're not performing, why we're not interacting well with each other. Because we say one thing and it puts up a wall, and someone is no way are they going to work with each other very well, other than on the surface. So that's again, a big chunk of the day that I love. And then we work on, okay, what are the big chunks of things that the company needs to work on for the next 6 to 12 months? What are the projects we can work on right now? And then we leave time. Do we have a tool that can help build them up, right? Whether through the session, like if there's a finance issue, people, or uh, a lot of it is just vernacular with finance or education. So we work on a tool with the team, whether again could be how do we build a process, so process mapping, or we do again financial literacy and talk about where can we what levers can we pull to help either increase profit or revenue, right? So we pick different tools depending on where they are. So the beautiful part is, like I said, I just want to show up. Is wherever the day flows, we go there. We have objectives that we want to address, but we're not so rigid that we have to get this done or we can't leave. I've been there, I've done that, where because there's an agenda, we're following the agenda, and it's like there's this huge elephant in the room that we just can't get past it. We have to address this, or else we're just going back to the same thing when we come back to work or the next day. If that's my job is to sense that, and if there's something that's hanging in the room,
Hmm.
then we need to address it. And most people say, and it's classic, great humans in most every business that I deal with, and they're like, well, I don't want to talk about this with everyone. I don't want to make everyone feel bad. I'm like, well, perfect, because we're gonna, and we can talk about this in a way that gets people past their inhibitions, and then they realize that, hey, they're not on the chopping block to get fired just because they say the truth or whatnot. And so, ultimately that day goes by in a blink of an eye, because for me, might not for all the people in the room, because sometimes it's, dealing with business things, right? You've got a leadership team, you have people that are operations and finance and sales and whatever. So not everyone has, and even some HR. So not everyone knows everything about the business. But they've got to work through some things together that might not be related to them, but their input is valid, because no matter what, everyone is connected. So very, very long-winded. I feel long-winded today.
Oh, you're good.
I'll make sure I get to the point for
I'm
you.
hanging on your words. I appreciate it. So there's two parts in a day that I'm particularly curious about. Then the first is how are you breaking down walls? What are your tactics for how you're breaking down those walls if people are like, I'm not sure if I want to share some of this.
I think one thing is example, right? Be the example. So if I'm expecting someone else to bear their soul, I need to make sure that they know that I'm here with them too. Because again, a lot of time being a third party, sometimes it makes people more willing to share. Sometimes it shuts them off. So knowing what that looks like, and knowing the dynamic of the people that I'm dealing with. Sometimes, because when we set up a new client, it's a different format, right? It's once a month for 4 months. So we're just getting to know each other. I have to be the example, right? I a lot of times have to start with my own vulnerable self. And again, I've got some stories, right? I've got some, just because I'm the coach here and I'm getting paid get paid to be here. I've gotten here by skinning my knees quite a bit. And so I have to be the example. The next step is I can read the room with how people are responding to certain things, who I know will be someone who's going to lean in more. And so then may start with them. And actually the other part is just being curious, right? Saying something and then just asking questions more. And hugs never hurt. To get people and getting others around them to make sure that we're supporting them and they feel that support, it's generally always there. But it's sometimes it's once that wall gets toppled over a little bit, the gush, it's just like a flowing water.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the most fun.
How do you go about finding the elephant in the room?
I think it's the same thing with being curious. A lot of times and most people that do what we do, right? We can see. Most people, if you're not in it, you can see it's like a glaring light, right? When you're in it, you can't really see it, right? I'm guilty. My own leadership team for my other business, we're doing our quarterly next week also. And again, it's the same thing. I have a coach that comes in to facilitate my sessions. Because quite frankly, and he's another Bloom Growth coach of mine, and we agreed to hey, I will, because he has a company, he's the same thing. And I told him hey, I'm a coach. I'm just going to facilitate my own. And I've been doing it for a while anyway. And he's like, hey, idiot, there's no way you're doing it effectively. He said it in a loving way. But so even for me, I know, even though I have all this training or all these things, I can't see past my own stuff because I've got my own heart in my place in a different spot in my business. I don't always see it.
Mm-hmm.
One, I generally can see it or sense it. And if not, sometimes people are pretty guarded because they don't want to make someone feel bad, look bad, or anything like that. It's just more curiosity and asking, right? Because again, I know pending, sometimes it comes through in different words that I hear through everyone's responses. And I just dig in a little more, ask a little more questions.
Mm-hmm.
Just what's really holding us back? Who is it? Like actually an example of a newer client, when we do a check-in sheet that I have them fill out ahead of time so that they're prepared. And I got a call from the owner, and he's like, well, people don't, one of them is talking about a people issue, right? Who doesn't meet our core values or isn't doing their job well, or it's worded in a way. And he's like, no one really wants to say anything. And I'm like, good. Well, we'll address that when we get together.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because everyone's just so nice.
Yeah.
and great humans, but that culture has been in them of being nice. That's what's holding them back. The elephant in the room is they're not willing to say the hard things or do the hard things because they just want to keep everyone happy. And and then once we get past that unlock, it's like, holy cow, you're not saying anything bad about this person. They're a great person. They meet our core values. Let's find the right role for them. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. It doesn't mean we're firing somebody. Um, it's how much more happy can we be if we actually just talk about it? And so, a lot of it, most of what I do is just being curious and asking questions. Right. We like to say the difference between me and a consultant is a consultant tells. What I do is ask. Right. And then the other people ask you, like, at some point, people are like, well, then when do you actually step in and tell people what to do? It's like, well, there are times when I see we're just swimming over here, like we're just treading water. And I'm like, okay, here's some options that I've seen in the past. And we go down that road. But I very rarely am I telling someone this is what you should do. And I say very, very rare, like 1 out of 100, because for anything in life, your kids, you, anyone, right? If you're told what to do, you're less likely to do it. If you make the decision to do it, then you're going to do it. So it's all about making sure that they are the one making the decision to do it. Therefore, I know they're actually are far more likely to accomplish it.
When it comes to the honest culture side, what to your ears is the sound of really quality feedback? What does really quality feedback sound like? That's equal parts constructive, build up, but also if there's an underperformance happening, like it's got that in it too.
Yeah, you're talking about like if just when you're explaining it to someone, like the person, or like in general, just talking about
more in general, like employee to employee, not necessarily you're coaching to them. When you hear feedback, what is really honest, constructive feedback sound like to you?
Yeah, I think that one is, it's funny. It keeps coming back to this here, right? Is coming from a place of, as long as people are coming from a place of gratitude, of thankful that they're in the position they're in to be doing what they're doing, thankful that that person is there doing the best that they can be doing. You can see that. So if they start with that, coming from that place of, I don't want to just make it like a what I call it, a positive sandwich, where it's like
right,
them up, raise them up, and then give them a little turd, and then a nice little. That's good. That's a good tactic, but doing it with authenticity, right? Saying, "Hey, I'm really, really grateful for you to do this. You're doing this really well." Where I'm seeing something that doesn't seem to be fitting the expectations that you've set for yourself is this here, and I'm seeing this, and I know you've done it well in the past or whatever, and so is there something I can help you with? If people come through with that helping framework, people are more open and vulnerable to talk about what the real issue is. How can I help? Because it doesn't seem like they're coming from a place of failure as much. Like, you're not doing this very well. That automatically puts someone's walls up. If you frame it in a form of questions, are always so much more helpful to get things done, right? Is there a way I can help you do this better? Is there a way that I don't like to use the word better either, but is there a way that we can help get this accomplished in a more efficient way, et cetera? I think it's been the most helpful for me.
The curiosity piece to me is the big unlock for sure. It's like if I feel as if you've missed the mark, I'm bringing that to your attention, but I'm asking questions about it. I'm seeking to understand first and foremost. And to your point, it's like the positive feedback sandwich doesn't necessarily have curiosity in it. It's like, you're great, but you messed this up, but you're great. But hey, you missed the mark here. Tell me more. What do you think about this? So I think the curiosity piece is like, it's a must have to start to build the trusting culture, right?
Yeah, and get to the real answer, right? 9 times out of 10, we start addressing the symptom. We don't address the real obstacle or opportunity, right? And if we won't do that unless we ask questions. because we're already making assumptions. If we're telling them, we're making the assumption about what the problem is, or if we're just trying to get them to get a quick reaction or a quick response, or they're just trying to get out of the conversation, they're going to give you a response that's not the real issue either, right? It's going to be an excuse. It's going to be someone else, or whatever it might be. So the more we just sit and don't even take their first answer, but just sit in and ask more questions about it, we'll actually get to the real root cause. And it might not be a people issue, or it might just be a role issue. It could be, it could be a number of different things. Here's the other part: if we don't go in with an assumption, we'll be that much more really curious. And it's hard to do when someone from like you, or again, me, you started this, so you know the ins and the outs of everything in the business. So, same thing for me. So of course I'm going to come in and say, I know how to do this better. Or boy, I can come in with some preconceived notions of what's actually happening. And so I'm going to steer them to what I think is best. And I haven't even addressed or potentially looked at what's possibly better. Right. So that's the hard part from a leader perspective of checking yourself at the door first. You might have the answer, but just keep asking questions.
Yeah, everyone's gonna have some assumption, but you're right. You really have to try to leave it at the door for a second. And it's hard. It's hard to fake that, right? Like, people know if you're really coming in with genuine curiosity, or if you're asking questions just to get to the assumption that you've got in your right pocket that you just can't wait to throw out there on the table. You just kind of have to tell yourself, leave it at the door. I can always go out and get it if we need to go get it, but I'm really coming in without it, which, so you can be genuinely curious, right?
Yeah. And I'd say a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percent of people do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Of really, and I like to use the word patience too, because most of the time it's like, I just want to, let me get you here faster. Let me hurry up. Let's
Right.
get you. And it requires patience to not just jump in and save and do.
Mm-hmm. Requires patience, and so this podcast is all about just like trying to break down the science of gratitude, and we're really like learning where people have come from, where they're going, and then how gratitude played a part along the way. And something that keeps coming up is for sure this concept that gratitude is intentional, and you have to choose it in small moments, because it's not just going to happen all the time. And it's similar logic here, this genuine curiosity. That's why you said a fraction of a fraction of a fraction. It's a muscle, and like, you can't just show up to the conversation, keep the assumption in your pocket, and expect that it's just going to be this open thing. You really have to like prioritize and be intentional about leaving it at the door, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And actually, you know what? Because I told you I was going to wait till we got on here, and this is it's absolutely relevant. But I was just thinking about it this morning. I told you we took a long family trip, and we were on a long flight, and there and back, and we were going over to Europe, which I hadn't been, and I know you spent some time over there, and so a couple things. One, just to set this up. I played soccer in high school, but it was really because I had to. I was a football guy, shoulder surgeries, couldn't play football anymore. So I was a fast guy, whatever, athlete, small town, went over to soccer, had a ball, didn't practice it, didn't work any skills. I was just I was a defender, a sweeper, so I just ran. And the thing about didn't do set plays or anything like that. So I've always appreciated soccer, not loved it from a action standpoint or watching, but I watched Ted Lasso a few years ago, watched it again, and I had to get Apple TV for Formula One. My son and I love Formula. Two of my sons and I love Formula One, so we had to get Apple TV to watch Formula One. Well, what's on Apple TV? Ted Lasso. So, again, rough language, not great for all the kids, but man, one of my favorite shows. Like, there's actual lessons in life in there, and actually all of them have them. They just do it in a different, discreet way. So I downloaded all the episodes, and I was catching up on them, and I was trying to get my kids to watch them. And again, it's a slow start for teenagers to jump in the movie or the show. But one, it just got me so into just remembering the lessons of Ted Lasso, and one of them just continually coming up is he doesn't say it. He doesn't have to say it, but gratitude is in there underneath in so many of the examples of when I'm trying to think. And have you watched Ted Lasso? I
Oh
should have
yeah,
asked.
seen it all.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Rebecca comes in, and that's when she reveals to him that she's been trying to sabotage him, in the first season. And he doesn't, you don't see a reaction that many of us would give, which is like, whoa, what? Doesn't go there at all. Instead, thanks her for the opportunity about how amazing this has been for him. And how could he possibly get mad at her for a mistake? And then continually that just keeps showing up. And so that show just, I was thinking about this today, because I've also then, it took me into one, just again, the soccer action and the teammates and all those sorts of things. And I love everything about it. Then Welcome to Wrexham. Did you watch that?
I have. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so I never did, right? I never paid. I saw social media stuff. I'm like, nah, whatever. But then I just started like, you know what? I'm going to download some of those and watch what that's all about. I think this is from 2022 or something like that. So now I'm like in season 2. So I watched watched a lot on the plane, and I can't get enough of that. Different reasons, but like the soccer mentality. And I was just all thinking about like, we were talking before the show. He and this has been scheduled a couple times, and I've had to push it off. But I think it was meant to come today, for a number of reasons. Is one, as I was sharing with him, is one, he gave me some socks last time I saw him, but grateful hat, and I've got fleece and thank you here that I won at our auction for Our Lady of Victory that he so gracefully donated. And I don't know. I was just thinking about my revised passion for soccer and everything like else, knowing that I'm going to be sitting with you. So I don't know. I want to flip that back on you, just as God was lining things up for us in the right way.
Absolutely. Always is. Always is.
Yeah.
So who's someone along the way that particularly sticks out? And I know there's a lot that you're particularly grateful for in your path.
Yeah. So many. I think that I'm going to say my wife, and I'm not saying that to try to get some kudos from her or anyone else, but and we haven't had the greatest of paths throughout of our whole marriage, right? I brought that, I mentioned that. A lot of times, we've even brought up the D word, that's been discussed over through the years. We've got 4 kids, and it'll be our 19th wedding anniversary this year. And
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I was just realizing that so much of my own angst or issue was how she would come across, right? She's the one that knows me the most. She knows my buttons, right? There's a reason that we're married. The reason we stayed married. There's, again, no one. I don't know about others, but I guess for me, like no one else could possibly know you more than your spouse if you've been with them for a number of years, right? They know the good, the bad, the ugly, all that. And I resented her for a long time, and it was literally it was just from her tone, and from that tone created a story in my head, and all those things of like my own shame and everything else. And so I'm grateful for her for not giving up, and I'm grateful for her because I finally realized that she just set a higher expectation for me than I did. And it's taken me years and years and years to realize that. And even today, or as we're coming back from vacation, and suitcases and everything else around, and she's human, just as human as I am, and starts barking orders around and all these things, and we're like, God, we just got home, because she wants to have a clean house and all these things, right? She's just holding us up to a higher standard. Like, holy cow, what a novel concept. How about holding myself to a higher standard? And so one is just, again, sticking through it with me, through my own thick-headed skull. I'm pretty stubborn, certainly have been in the past. And I'm grateful. I would never have learned the lessons for myself. I don't think I would have gone on this path for myself um, if it wasn't for her, because uh, I was so wrapped in, again, what life is, what success looks like. Okay, well, if I just look successful to everybody else, if I just keep buying things, right, that's who I've been my whole life. Well, I thought I was my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just continue to do that. And then the stress will be the stress. And, you know, that's just a cycle. That's who you're supposed to be. And, one thing that I'd left out with my trip to the mountain, the one thing I was looking for, part of the thing was, what's the one thing you're looking for when you go out there? And I came down to, I want a better relationship with my wife. Again, which sounds wonderful, right? I mean, that sounds genuine. Um, and I did. And I was more so trying to figure out what the heck was wrong with her that I've got to go fix or whatever, right? I'm going to try to go fix it. And then I left there. That's the real power of me leaving there. And the story behind that is, when it came down to the moment of asking for what I want, and there was a whole ceremony around that and getting emotionally involved and me being all the way in on it, I just realized, holy cow, I need to find me. It's not her. And again, that was the precipice of where we are today. That was 4 or 5 years ago. Um, and still on that journey. And it's all because she sees the best in me and wants me to stay there.
If she were watching this right now and you had to deliver a raw, authentic message just straight to her, what would that sound like?
Oof. Wow, you're good. You're good. I will not do this justice, but uh, you know, in my heart is, thank you, hon, thank you, God, for putting you in my life and continually showing me the best of life, showing me that helpful conversations and accountability are essential for us to be the best for ourselves. And you've always seen that in me. And thank you for your patience with me seeing it as well.
Said, thanks for sharing that, John.
Dude, nuts. Thank you.
You talked about your upbringing and how maybe started with little that maybe made you crave certain things to fill that cup up, and then learn maybe those things weren't the thing. But when you look back on your upbringing, what about it are you most grateful for?
Um, no, I'm grateful that I grew up in, now, grant, I can come back, I can judge it all day long today, seeing things. But I grew up with people, my family, doing the best they could with what they had. And that example of, they weren't trying to be anybody else. It was as raw and authentic as you can be. And I resented that for a long time. I thought, you know, I'm trying to think of an example. Like, again, once I started, other echelons of society, right? Have some more manners, or, want more for yourself. No, they were who they are. and they were just that. That's my mom. That's my dad. That's my sisters. I sat in judgment for the longest time because I was like, how could you guys not want to get more? Get out of here. It took me a long time to realize it's not a requirement of life. Go want more and have more. So I guess that would be, uh, yeah, that's what I'd be grateful for.
What does it mean to do the best with what you've got? What does it look like?
Um, there was some wrapped into that, which for me was, again, like my mom came from a very abusive family. One of those instances where she found out she had a sister she never knew about, that her mom had adopted, had given away before her. My grandmother had left her and her siblings, and they lived in Indiana. She left them in Michigan and just took off. My mom had a very, very not the greatest example of how to be a mother. And with now looking at how she was a mother to us, again, I sat when I resented. I'll keep using that word, right? I resented my parents for the longest time because of what I didn't have. And when I look at my mom had just an awful example of how to lead life, and she leads it and led it in her way, did the best for us as kids, always had us wherever we needed to be as a single mom, or when she remarried. That's what I mean. Not the. It came across as when I was growing up, it was about the physical things, right? Not the nice car, not the nice house. But my meaning in that was, she brought to the table. Everyone wants to give more for their kids or do. They wants their kids to be better than they are, right? And my mom did that in spades, right? Just in 100x. And I never knew that or realized that as a kid. And my mom never told us that story of my grandma leaving them till like literally just not even 5 years ago. So again, it just comes back to, we all look at a lens of what we see, of what's in front of us, right? And if we don't sit back and ask questions or be grateful for what we had, just wallowing in a terrible, relationship spirals and everything else. So when I grew up, the definition of what you just asked me was being happy with, because I always said I would never live paycheck to paycheck, right? That's what I felt like I grew up in. That's what for the most of my life, that was my being happy with good enough. But moving it to feeling good about what you're doing in life, right? And how you're raising your kids, right? That was my mom's definition.
Mm-hmm.
She devoted her life to us and never recognized that early on.
Is mom still around?
Yeah, she's great.
Cool.
So my parents had my oldest sister when my mom was 18, and so they were together young, and so then my oldest sister then had kids young. Both my older sisters had kids pretty young, and so my mom, who is now she's 60, she'll be 69 this year. She was a grandmother at like 40. She was a grandmother in her 30s. So, and she's a great grandmother at this young age. And so she lives in Indiana still, 3 hours away. She was just up here a couple weeks ago for my daughter's gymnastics meet. She's going to be in Louisville in a couple weeks for my daughter's gymnastics meet. She goes and watches my youngest sister, has young kids in Indianapolis. So it's a couple hours away. She's there constantly helping her. So she's like semi-retired, but my mom is everywhere we are. She just wants to be wherever we are and whatever we're doing. She's incredible.
That's awesome. If she were going to listen to this and you had a message straight for her, what would that sound like?
Oof, boy. I guess, do you measure your podcasts in tiers as well?
Do not. Not yet, anyway.
Oh, man. Well, this one's been a couple so far. Feeling, Mom, thank you for being who you are. Thank you for not apologizing for that. Thank you for everything that you've poured into us and to everyone around you. Thank you for always giving everything to us, all of your heart, all your thoughts. And thank you for being authentically you.
Well said again.
All right.
Thank you for sharing that, John.
Yeah. And she's my number one fan too, by the way. So
It's awesome.
me started my podcast, like she's been the one that's like, she'll send me something like, "Hey, I loved," and some of my friends from high school have been on, and so she's like starts tearing up and all that, and so she'll definitely listen to this.
Well, that's
I
awesome.
promise.
That's awesome. Well, that's great. Uh, we ask everybody that we bring on to this Grateful Human podcast this question: what makes gratitude so powerful? As we're trying to crack the code on gratitude and reverse engineer the layers to produce something that can be helpful to everyone. What in your mind makes it so powerful?
Um, when I knew that this question was coming, and I think I had a response, but at the more the turns and everything that we've had in this conversation, um, it's seeing things from so many different lenses. I think that the power of it is really the backbone of it is love. I think that I don't think that we can actually love someone without gratitude. Truly, that word has used love is thrown out in so many ways in different ways, and other than my journey over the past few years of another grateful human that I am grateful of is Abizer Rashid, who is my personal coach, who uh, who's really kind of taken me off in a different direction of really of what gratitude is, and I think it boils down to love. The and the reason I say that is we live in judgment annually of people, of things, situations. I don't know of a better word than judgment. And even in like we were talking about earlier about leadership skills, and when someone, how do you give them bad news or whatever? You can't you you'll continually just be mad at people or judging people or not opening up your arms to people if you don't have gratitude. And I think love is another word for gratitude because um, uh, pulling away that sense of not that judgment, that ego. There's no way to fully love someone without it, because there's always a shell. There's always something that's holding it back from. And because again, this is kind of back to Beezer, right? Ask me a few hard things, right? How do you really love her? Do you really do you love them? And people view that in a way that uh, it has to be mushy, right? The love part. But with gratitude, you can truly, because again, we're all worried about boyfriends, girlfriends, that kind of love, right? Um, but with gratitude, that power of you can love everyone and everything. You can't do that without gratitude. It's not possible to walk through life with love. Because I've realized, I am love, care, and compassion. That is John Glon. That's always been inside me. I had to uncover it. So it's not words, it's not aspiration. I had to uncover that through gratitude. Uh, and that's just been a part of my journey, and where I'm not here without gratitude. So again, another long-winded one, but you've pulled a lot out of me today.
Well,
I'm
no,
grateful.
I'm grateful for your time. For you spending some time here to chop it up with me on gratitude, means a lot. So thank you, John.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity, man. Been a heck of a time.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Friends, John Glon is a growth coach for leadership teams, and he is most definitely a grateful human. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, man.